This is Dementia Air Network, brought to you by Beyond Dementia Coalition, and I'm your host, Bruce Layton. This interview is part of our 2025 Symposium interview series, recorded during the second annual Northeast Georgia Dementia Symposium, hosted by Beyond Dementia Coalition and Alzheimer's Association. Okay, I am honored and truly honored. Thank you for being here. And welcome Dr. P.K. Beville. P.K. is a founder and CEO Emeritus of Second Wind Dreams. And let's talk a little bit about that today also.
Sure thing.
In the little time that we have. And also, Dr. Beville is also a certified end-of-life practitioner, and I'd like to dive into that if we could as well.
I would love that.
Do you want to tell me about your presentation? And you said you got a lot of questions, so maybe let's start there.
Yeah. Well, so the topic was empathic transitions, which is a program that we have at Second Wind for people to be trained on how to provide good end-of-life care for people specifically with dementia. Dying with dementia is totally different than any other death, and yet it's not been addressed much. So I think that's where a lot of the questions came from. Family members concerned, what do they do at the end of life? Even if hospice is there, they can't be there all the time.
Can you share what makes it different, end of life with dementia?
Sure.
And maybe dive into the dynamics, the interpersonal dynamics of both family involved or close, whoever's close personally, and the person that's passing.
Yeah, so do you have 4 hours? So I guess the best way to answer that is people with dementia are unable to communicate at the end of life. People who are dying of heart disease, cancers, things like that, they're usually able to communicate their needs, their wishes, what they would like to leave as a legacy, and a person with dementia honestly can't do that. And they've been struggling with this for years. Now let's enter the family into that, and they've been struggling for years too. So they're experiencing what's called anticipatory grief. They're constantly in the back of their mind thinking about, when will this end? How will this end? How can I be there? Should I be there? Do they need to be in a home? How about hospice? What about palliative care? So we have a whole lot of issues surrounding what the family is having to deal with, because again, the person with dementia can't do that. Another piece that's different for a person with dementia is that they can't tell us when they're in pain. Because of the way that the brain is structured, that part of the brain is still active, but if they can't articulate that their hip hurts, their head hurts, their arms hurt, well, it's no wonder that they get to the end of life and they're combative and difficult, and it's hard to help them calm down.
Yeah. And so when we talk about it, Beyond Dementia Coalition, we talk about the persons with dementia still have emotion, wills, and that plays out as well. They might not be able to express them, and there's escalations in behavior, I think, as you've just pointed out. So I'm assuming you acknowledge that. It sounds like in terms of...
I do, but I'm really focused on the end of life, and that's when they can't do any of that. So I'm focused on when they are not as ambulatory, when they are unable to feed themselves anymore, when they are in a more advanced stage. Of course, we always want earlier stages to get their living wills done, and there's one specifically for dementia that is by compassionate choices, and I love that one. I use it all the time with early to early middle stage. But I'm at end of life, I'm actually focused on that.
I got it. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And if we talk about end of life and bereavement in terms of loved ones, that often continues for a time after somebody's passing in the end of life. Do you work with the family at that point? Yeah.
Sure. So here's what I tell the doula. So I have a training program for people to learn how to be a dementia doula, end-of-life care, specifically for dementia. And what I tell them is that If you are personally at the bedside of the person when they take their last breath with the family, you need to call them a week later and you need to talk to them about what happened. So many times that poor family is dealing with so much, and they're dealing with the death of their loved one. It's hard for them to articulate questions that they may have, but they will have them after about a week. And if you were there, you need to be the one to talk to them about that. And then we refer them to bereavement counseling groups. My favorite is Daughterhood. It is for men and women, but it has free counseling services on dementia, only on dementia, that's all they focus on, and circles of support groups. It's an amazing organization.
Just a few more questions. I'd like to focus back on Second Wind Dreams.
Oh, good.
And how the virtual dementia tour came to be. What's the intent of the
Sure.
virtual dementia tour?
Oh, of course. So I founded Second Wind Dreams in January of 97. I've been working with geriatrics since 1983. So I have a lot of skin in the game and a lot of work with different levels of care. But what I kept finding was, nobody is thinking about what not only a person with dementia, but an older adult living in long-term care dreams of. So I prayed and prayed and prayed. Give me the funding, give me the funding, give me the funding. Actually, God was giving me the funding because He planted the seed for my PhD to create the virtual dementia tour. So my concern has been, or had been, and continues to be to a certain extent, the fact that people are caring for people with dementia with absolutely no insight into what that person is actually going through. So I studied how the brain dies and what the behavioral output of that cell death is in the brain, and I tried to mimic that in a normal person's brain so that they're experiencing the loss of peripheral vision, the loss of inability to understand spoken word, pain, and sensory depth. And then I figured out the only way to actually simulate that would be to put them in a room that's much like what a person with dementia is dealing with and simulate that. So then the gig was to figure out how I could measure that. So we have the pre and the post. And then there's been other iterations of it since then. So after about a year of my publication, a couple of the places I piloted the VDT in, it wasn't called that then, it was called something else, and said, would you come back and do this again? Mm-hmm. Well, it took me 2 seconds to realize, there it is. You want me to create a way to replicate this. And so we're in 20 countries and 9 languages now.
It's amazing.
And I know, it is. It's all God.
The number
God.
of lives you've touched, and I'm one of them. Joan is another one. My wife.
That's all God.
Yeah,
so I donated it to Second Wind, and now that's what funds the dreams.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. So it's a beautiful way He structured this.
PK, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, the pleasure's mine.
Yeah, I'd love to do a full podcast with you at some point in time and really delve into the subject matter.
I would love that.
I enjoy the exchange. If you've enjoyed this,
of course,
I'd love to do it.
I have, very much.
Great.
I look forward to the next talk.
Thank you.
We hope this brief but meaningful conversation offers a vital perspective on dementia care, advocacy, and the power of community. This is Dementia Air Network, where voices matter and stories connect. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep the conversation going.